Then I charged like $150, right? So it was all these small increments. And it just started to build for me the realization and the proof that this is something that you can actually monetize. And regardless of how much you pay or charge or not, it's something that gets to be valued. And I do think that in a lot of cases, we don't see our own value. And I think that, I mean, obviously it's unfortunate, but it's also so real. So it's like finding the balance between, okay, what does your stepping stone look like? But also, how can you continuously advance so that we're not almost like devaluing the work that we're doing, right?
Hello, Futuras Cash Libres. Welcome back to the show. Today, we are going to be talking about all things how to get fully booked as a speaker. One of my favorite parts is to bring guests that have done the work, guests that are also getting paid, and guests that are having a bigger impact with the speaker community. So, Steph, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much for introducing me slash welcoming me to your platform. I'm good. I'm excited to dive in, and I'm just really excited to even connect, even if indirectly, with your community and hopefully help them on their journey as speakers themselves.
You were one of the very few platforms that I personally know that are constantly promoting Latinas, BIPOC, underrepresented people to become speakers. And so I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing because I believe it's so important to believe that people that look like us, right, like Latinas, within on our own diverse community, can become speakers. And so I just want to say gracias.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much because I spent a very long time trying to both craving and trying to create or even just find community as a Latina who's also queer, who's also a white Latina. A lot of my differences or diversity is very invisible, which provided its own weird kind of barrier to finding and connecting with people in a more like identity based, like real personal way. And it took just over, I want to say like 3 years of just like searching and feeling like I just couldn't find the kind of spaces that I wanted and that I was really needing in that moment as an entrepreneur. And so now the fact that it's been slowly like year by year growing into this movement, this community, this space, it's just so freaking exciting and beautiful. I'm like, wow, like I can't believe, I mean, it took time, but we got here. So just to hear other folks that they either want that too, or they see it, right? Just to feel seen in that way. It's very much appreciated.
At the beginning of the year, I connected with through Instagram. She looked at me and said, "Thank you for being a keynote." And I was kind of like taken away by it. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Because I've always wanted to be a keynote speaker, but I didn't know that I could become a keynote because of my accent. And watching you have an accent and watching you do this has given me permission to even apply for opportunities that look like they weren't for me." And so I was like, "Oh my God." Sometimes we don't look at the impact that we have, away from Instagram. And for you specifically, I wanted to thank you because you bring diversity within our own Latinidad. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I am a mother of a daughter who will be considered a white Latina. And so I very much love your platform, but now I want to bring the conversation back to you. When did you decide that you wanted to become a speaker? Because, sometimes you don't even know that you can become a speaker.
No, I feel like it was almost in a way decided for me. There was obviously a lot of signs throughout like my childhood, especially in university. I actually participated in a lot of competitions that put me on stages, even though I didn't view that as public speaking at the time. But really the moment that shifted things for me was when I was already in my entrepreneurship journey. And I had been creating a lot of content initially around my area of expertise and what I sold in terms of my offers. All of a sudden something almost like subconsciously shifted. I noticed that I was really good at a different side of the business and I had to do more with like being visible, showing up, marketing yourself. So I started leaning into that just because that's what people were asking me questions around. And somebody started to notice they were hosting in-person events and they reached out, they slid into my DMs and they're like, "Hey Steph, like I love what you're sharing about XYZ, like showing up and marketing and whatnot. Would you like to speak on a panel at this event that I'm hosting in Toronto?" That's not what I do. Like, that's not my business. Like, what do you mean? But obviously, like, the idea sounded super exciting. I worked in Toronto at the time, so I'm like, I could do my corporate job, then I can go to this event, speak at the event, connect with a bunch of other entrepreneurs, build a community. Like, yes, sign me up. And that was kind of what almost opened me up to the world, the possibility of like, this is something I actually can do. Not just as a career, like I can be a public speaker, but even just as a way to continue to build community, attract people into my business and my platforms. And it just kind of kicked off this entire journey and led me to where I am right now, which is actually specializing in public speaking as opposed to everything that I used to specialize on before.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So now you just mentioned Vancouver. So where are you located?
It's funny because I rarely run into folks who live in Canada and run their own business or are into public speaking. The majority of my community is all located in the States and then a couple countries around the world. So whenever I talk about Canada and the cities that I've lived in and living currently, everybody's like, okay. And I'm like, West Side or East Side. Like, I got to clarify like that. I'm like, I'm the equivalent of like either California or New York. That's how I compare it. So I used to live in Toronto back in the day, and that's where my public speaking and entrepreneurship journey started. But I actually ended up quitting my job right before the pandemic and moving across the country to the West End. So it's the equivalent of, let's say, California, San Francisco, and so forth. And it is really close to Vancouver. It's almost like, I want to say like 5 hours away from that. And it's this one town called Kelowna in the middle of the province or state for anybody from the States. And it is freaking beautiful. It's like a mid-sized city, like nestled in between the mountains. There's lots of vineyards. And recently, one of the things that I actually love the most is not just the climate and like the environment and lifestyle, but it's the fact that we've had so many Hispanic folks moving here, especially from Mexico, but from a lot of different countries. So like the Latin culture is growing a lot in my city. And I'm like, what do you mean I can get like authentic food? Like there's lots of restaurants, there's lots of events, lots more Latin dancing. So I just feel like I'm absolutely thriving here. It's my own little pocket of like Latinx community identity within Canada, which is so freaking beautiful.
And I love that. I love that. And I knew this about you that you live there, but I was like, my listener probably doesn't know this. Now, I want to ask you about once you were given the opportunity to be part of this event when you had your 9 to 5, when did you decide, okay, I'm going to make this my career, and walk us through the mindset of what it takes to actually charge for your speaking services?
It's interesting because if I were to even look at it from the lens before entrepreneurship, I used to do a lot of speaking as part of my corporate job. So I wasn't getting paid specifically to speak, it was just part of my role. So it's not one of those things where I can send a pitch or a quote. It's just, no, this is a given, you're doing this. And I didn't mind because I was getting my salary, so it was fine. But there was a shift that I had to make where, okay, you speak in school, you speak in corporate, now you sell services where people hire you for a specific thing, but you also speak. Like, is this actually something that I can monetize? And at the beginning, I was doing like strictly for free, like no pay kind of public speaking opportunities. And eventually, what ended up shifting for me is I tried, and I find this is usually helpful for a lot of folks, is I almost like just dipped my feet in. So the first couple times, instead of like financial payment, I got kind of like in kind. So like, oh, we'll promote you on this platform, we'll do a newsletter about you and so forth. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm getting paid through exposure, which there's issues with that as well. But that was kind of my baby stepping stone. Then I charged like $150, right? So it was all these small increments and it just started to build for me the realization and the proof that this is something that you can actually monetize. And regardless of how much you pay or charge or not, it's something that gets to be valued. And I do think that in a lot of cases, we don't see our own value. And I think that, I mean, obviously it's unfortunate, but it's also so real. So it's like finding the balance between, okay, what does your stepping stone look like? But also, how can you continuously advance so that we're not almost like devaluing the work that we're doing, right? Because we all need a starting point, but also how can we empower everybody, all public speakers, all entrepreneurs to continuously grow and actually, if you want to call it this, to charge their worth, right? It's like, no. Let's actually realize that the work that we're doing is work and people are paying and there are big budgets. So let's step up for that so that the expectation, which is very common, the expectation for these event hosts and whatnot isn't that we're going to do our work for free. It's that, hey, this is work that's very beautiful, impactful, and it's something that you want and need. So let's go ahead and normalize the fact that it's something that gets charged for and paid.
I love that. I love the stepping stones that you're talking about. Now, you mentioned about getting paid through visibility and exposure, which I've see a lot of that as well. And then you also talk about big budgets. So, as you know, I love talking about money, and I love for our community to really get some of that piece of a pie. So, where can people actually find the opportunities that have the big budget?
It's such a typical question. I feel like not even specific about finances, but the question that I get the most is just how to find public speaking opportunities, period. Now, of course, the money conversation is so freaking beautiful and sexy. When it comes to finding opportunities, so one of the things that I'll preface with is typically when I give advice, whether it's my clients, my community, and I'm like, okay, if you're going to focus on a couple key strategies when it comes to booking more speaking engagements, it's really nice to have almost like a two-pronged approach. So it's both a pitching, putting yourself out there, doing the work, right? Actually going after your goals and also attracting. So that's got more to do with like building a brand, a portfolio, and whatnot in order for folks to then reach out to you. Because full transparency, one, not one of, the majority of the paid speaking gigs that come my way nowadays are folks that reach out because of their reputation that I built, right? So I don't even have to ask about budgets. It's just like, hey, like this is our budget. Like, are you happy with it? Essentially is what they're asking, even if it's not with those exact words. But it's like, can you work with this? Can we make this happen? Right. So two-pronged approach. But in order to really dig into what you're asking, which is okay, how do you find them? There's a couple of different things that you can do. And I'm gonna lean into relationship building as one of the biggest aspects. So, yes, you can Google. Absolutely. Go on Google, search different keywords in terms of conferences, workshops, your area of expertise, and calls for speakers are actively going to show up there. I'm often sharing those opportunities with my clients, and I'm like, hey, like, go pitch yourself to all these opportunities, some of them free, some paid. So, searching for them, attending events, right? Especially if you're looking to start speaking and you're like, okay, you want to get paid to speak. Maybe you want to travel, but let's start locally so you can build that reputation and that confidence in your portfolio. So then we'll start attending events, right? Because a lot of those events, whether it's because they have the budget through sponsorships, etc., they have money allocated to go ahead and pay their speakers. So when you start attending, now you're building those relationships that I was alluding to, and they're the perfect way to start, essentially, whether you pitch yourself or not, to start getting that yes. Like, I want you to speak at my event. If I were to look at the majority of booked gigs, both for myself, my community clients, a lot of them, they go a very long way when you have that rapport, that relationship built. Because I will say with some corporate settings, you can get them without the relationship because they're just really looking for the tangible kind of expertise. But at the end of the day, when an event host is paying a speaker or even just inviting a speaker on their platform, they want to be able to have that comfort level, that level of trust, because they're essentially giving you their entire community, their audience, and they're going, respect this person, the speaker, and I believe in what they preach and what they say. So, in order to do that, that relationship allows them to get to know you as a person, as a speaker, to get a sense of your expertise and your opinions and your beliefs, and all those things essentially what you stand for, your brand, are going to be what allows them to be like, yeah, you're a shoe in. I'm willing to pay the bill, essentially. Like, this is a no brainer for me. So I would say pitching, attracting, definitely research, but relationship building is going to be key across the board, no matter what your strategy is.
Yes, and I love the part of relationship building because sometimes you don't even look for opportunities and people are tagging you like, "Hey, I know the right person." And so a
Yeah.
lot of the opportunities that I have secured have come from people that tag me on Instagram or on LinkedIn, and they're like, "Hey, this is your girl. You have to," right? And I really like that, and I also like to give back to the mujeres that tag me, especially if I know they are speakers. I also like promote them when the opportunity comes. So you talk about going after your goals. And for someone who is getting started into these public speaking, what are some financial goals that they should have? Should there be like a, I want to make like $10,000 a year, like 100,000 as a speaker? What do you recommend?
When I usually set my goals, I do have financial goals, but usually I try to come at it from a different perspective first. And I try and look at alignment and what would excite me. Because sometimes, and I know this happens to other people, but of course, if this isn't your experience listening in, totally cool. Sometimes when we put a financial goal, it becomes very binary, right? And it becomes day in and day out, you're striving for it. You're not likely going to book a public speaking engagement every single day. So then every day feels like proof that it's not going to happen. Right. And that can put a lot of pressure on ourselves, especially with something as specific as public speaking, right? Where you're not just getting signups on your email list and you can celebrate them perhaps every day. It's like, no, no, no. We're actively doing a lot of the research behind the scenes. We're pitching, we're applying and whatnot. So, what I love to do is actually set a vision for what kind of speaker you want to be. And that can include things such as what kind of speaking engagements. So, do you want to do a keynote, fireside chats? Do you want to host workshops and kind of start to visualize what that looks like, how you engage with your audience, and then start to actually name those rooms? Is it a podcast that you want to start off as a public speaker, right? To learn and practice what it feels like to share your story? Is it a specific in person conference that you've heard about and you're like, that would be so freaking cool? And you add it to almost like your vision board. But start from that place, because then what you can do is you almost map out a strategy that feels exciting and fun. And then you tack on, okay, I would like to start off with booking, let's say, 3 speaking engagements in the next 6 months, and I would like all of them to be paid, but I will take one in kind if that's the case. So you start setting metrics like that, right? And then implementing, right? You've got your goals, both the excitement, the financial, you've got your strategy that feels fun and makes the journey enjoyable, and then you start building towards that. And the cool thing is, sometimes it can take you 6 months. Sometimes maybe it takes a little bit longer. Sometimes it takes 1 month. And then you can adjust, right? And you can start setting the goals higher and higher and higher. So it really depends on one, your personal preference on how you like to set goals, but also remembering that you can keep adjusting the more that you grow and the more experience, because the first goal that you set 6 months later is going to be like, oh, like that's nothing. Like, let me try for something bigger, right? Like you start building that confidence and it's just like, damn, like I can really do so much more once you start seeing proof that people are willing to pay for your work.
I love that. I love that progression of later on, you're going to see that people are booking you. Now, you talk about personal branding, which I feel that a lot of people don't associate that with adding it to the expertise of the public speaker. And so when someone is getting started, like what type of investments should they be considering before they actually go and apply for opportunities or secure their first keynote?
Do you mean what kind of investments, financial, in terms of financial investments into like potentially like skills or stuff like that?
Your personal brand. Yeah, like when I'm talking to people, they're always asking me, like, hey, where did you train to be a speaker? Right. And like
Mhm.
you, I used to also talk a lot in my corporate career. Like every week I have to
Yeah.
in front of people. And for some people that are non-traditional speakers, in the sense that they don't do that at the 9 to 5, they're always wanting to know, well, do I invest in a coach? Do I need to have vocal lessons? Do I need to, have a photo shoot and a website? And so I just kind of ask the question intentionally to destigmatize the idea that you need everything to start.
Yeah. No, and that's such a good point, because do I have tips? Absolutely. And we can talk about one or two things that people can get started with. But at the end of the day, and a conversation I've had in the past around what proof, what certificates, accreditation, what, right? Like, what do you need in order to be a speaker? At the end of the day, you actually don't need anything. You just need you, yourself, your story, and your expertise. If you're more the angle of like you want to teach and inspire and get people to take action in like a specific way like that, right? Especially for us entrepreneurs. But that's it. So really, if you were to pick one key thing, and something that I've been playing around with a lot lately in terms of just something that I'm really passionate about, has to do with really reconnecting with who you are at the core. And the reason I say this is because, especially for our comunidad, right? Like whether you're Latinx, if you're BIPOC, queer, anything where typically society has different expectations for who you should be, how you should show up, act, talk, all the things. With time, as you're growing up, especially then through school and careers, you start to condition yourself. The world conditions you into showing up a certain way. And that tends to affect your voice as well. So if you're going to invest anything, whether it's financial or not, I would say spend time, money, etc., getting to really tap into your own thought leadership, your voice, your opinions, your stories, so that when you do get up on stage, when you do a panel, an interview, a keynote, it's coming from a place that's very uniquely yours and something that nobody else could, in essence, replicate. And also so that it feels more genuine. So you're like, this is literally like my heart's and soul's work, as opposed to I'm just doing it to check off a list because I think it's the only way I'm going to get paid, which we all need to do sometimes. I get it. But if you are in a position where you're now doing this and you want to build something greater beyond what's expected of you, then getting to really know and reconnect and reclaim your voice is going to be one of the biggest things possible. So whether you do it through Toastmasters locally, which I literally just looked it up recently and it's like $150 or something like that the first year, do that, right? It allows you to practice, to do it in a setting in community. If you want to join a group coaching program and get somebody to support you through the journey, you can absolutely go ahead and reach out or find another coach that does something similar, right? And it's finding those spaces where you can truly feel comfortable and safe to just do things imperfectly and show up and just practice and flex that muscle of using your own voice and sharing what's actually in your mind and in your heart.
And I will say, before you think about investing in Toastmaster, just hire a Latina. I I actually
Yes.
was part of Toastmasters before, and in our community last year they had a Toastmasters and Espanol, but
Awesome.
things change, and I don't think that an Espanol is longer active. But I do like to go and listen to other people, especially as we're trying to reclaim like our Spanish, right? Like that's something
Hmm.
that I intentionally have been building on with Say Hola Well, only on YouTube. So I do have a couple interviews that we did in Spanish because we're like, no, we have to also include that. But on that note, do you have any keynotes or any signature talks that you do in Spanish?
Honestly, thanks for putting me on the spot like that. No, I don't. I wish I did. Funnily enough, a couple months ago, 4 months ago, I started this series on social media where I'm actually practicing my public speaking. I'm practicing sharing my voice, my opinions in Spanish, porque la verdad es que whenever I usually do it, o me olvido las palabras, or it's like a tongue twister, like trabalenguas, and all of a sudden, like the feelings of uneasiness come up that used to come up when I first started my public speaking journey. So it's a cool, weird inception moment. So I am actively practicing, and I think that would be the coolest thing ever to one day be able to actually deliver either a talk or even a workshop in Spanish. That's gonna be on my vision board, I think.
Yes, so like we're gonna challenge you. The reason why I asked is because I was looking at your series and I thought that was fascinating. So for me, what probably most people don't know is that I have not been speaking Spanish for the last 20 plus years. And so it's kind of sad, but also now with my daughters being bilingual and going to a bilingual school, every day they come home and we do homework in Spanish. And so that for me became not just a reclamation, but also a reminder of how beautiful our language is. And so that's why I started creating content in Spanish too. I was like, you know what? I will say that. And yeah, also reconnecting with my friends and family members that I haven't talked to in years because I was like, no hablo español bien, and now I'm like, como salga, like I'm just gonna go for it. So I love how you sound in Spanish, by the way. It's very unique. So tell us your family's background. Where are they from?
Yeah.
How do you ended up in Canada?
That's so funny because it's true. Even myself, and I know this happens a lot in the States, especially like California, but other states as well, where you end up surrounded very much by specific culture. Let's say for me right now, it's Mexican culture. So you hear that accent over and over. And my accent's from Argentina. In my experience, is not as common to stumble into other Argentinos. So the accent tends to be very different. I was actually born and raised in Argentina, lived there for 13 years before moving here to Canada with my parents and my two brothers. So it was just one of those journeys where it's very common in Latin America, but essentially the economy was just completely tanking down the drain. My dad had lost his job, was unemployed for about 2 years, and was just not finding any opportunities. So it's one of those decisions like everything seems to trend downwards as far as the economy, country, safety, etc. goes. So do we stay here? do I keep trying for another 2 years or do we move abroad? And Canada happened to be somewhere where he had distant family, like second cousins or something like that. So we moved to Toronto, and the rest is literally history. So being a small family unit of 5 people trying to rebuild their lives in a new country, English speaking, we did speak English back in Argentina because we did go to bilingual school, but it was like a whole retraining of the slang and how to socialize and how to do all these things in a new country, in a new language. So we started slowly losing our vocabulary. We started slowly speaking it less and less and less. And especially when I got married, or when I started dating my partner, which was roughly like 10 or so years ago, then I stopped speaking it altogether because now I had a new family unit, no language connection. And it wasn't until what you just shared about your own kids, where it's like my son is now 2 years old and I speak exclusively in Spanish to him. And it's the most beautiful way to like reclaim your own cultura and like reconnect with like your own identity. And it's just, it's one of the things that makes me the happiest. Like you said earlier, to be able to bring that into public speaking or my business would be like such a cool full circle moment.
Yes. And I first of all, I love that you're Argentinian because I think it's just beautiful. I also love me some good empanadas. So I have like I'm connected with this cohort here in Seattle with people that every time we get together, there is more than just tamales or tacos. Like there's empanadas, arepas. I mean, they're like from all over Latin America and also the US. And so the first time I had empanadas argentinas, I was like, "My God, where have you been my whole life?" Like, I love, 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 love food so much that I'm probably gonna go have some after I stop recording the podcast. And so,
Yes.
I mean, I can keep asking you about food, but really, I want to really use this space to invite more Latinas to become public speakers. So, how can we continue to invite people to say, you know what? I am going to take up space. I am going to pitch myself for these opportunities and really overcome the fear of the belief that we need all of these credentials.
One of the things I genuinely believe a lot of future speakers don't realize. And it's because the image of what a speaker should look like, who they should be, it's very much rooted around celebrity status. Is we see all these famous people on red carpets, on stages, doing all these cool interviews. So we see the big conference with thousands and thousands of attendees, and they're all like on their feet, shouting, clapping, like cheering the person, the keynote on, that it becomes very distant, that vision. It's like, okay, so I do need to make $1 million and be a movie star or write a book or all these things. And those are amazing accomplishments and they're great things that you can build, but you don't need all the different, that track record in order to speak. And the shift really becomes when you think about speaking in itself, whether it's a stage or an interview, what people are actually doing is they're communicating. They are sharing a story. 9 times out of 10, they're sharing a story. We all have stories. Like you think about when's the last time you told a story to somebody? It was probably earlier today, or if not yesterday, on the phone to a friend or to your partner over a glass of like a cup of coffee. We do that all the time. And that is what public speaking is. It's the ability to communicate a thought with somebody else. And hopefully that thought will be something that either motivates, inspires, entertains, teaches. So if you have that, if you have a story and you have something that you're passionate about, you are a speaker already. Now it's just a matter of bringing that speaking that you've been doing over the phone, over a little cafecito, and bring it on a stage. And maybe the first step is a podcast interview. Maybe it is a panel and you move your way up to the keynote or whatever feels like sexy, unattainable. But it's realizing that public speaking is not celebrity status. It's actually just the act of connecting with people and sharing the story. That's all it is. And you have that inside you already.
Yes. And by nature, I think that a lot of Latinas just innately, we are storytellers. You know, our abuelitas were storytellers and we love good chismes. So anytime somebody like asks, like, where do I start? I'm like, just think about how you share, you know, chisme with your friends where you sometimes exaggerate, like, oh my God, no puedes creer. Like you're just like so into it. Like
Yes.
that's how we speak, right? And I personally have learned so much from just watching your your content and also your YouTube channel, because you do have a YouTube channel where you talk about all things public speakers. So for those of you that want to connect with Steph, make sure that you give her a follow at thespeakermovement.com and also check the link in the show notes. But Steph, I don't want to let you go without asking you, what is your definition of wealth?
My definition of wealth is definitely rooted around holistic wealth. So, wealth in all areas, whether it's financial, emotional, just looking at all areas that truly bring joy and make me feel fulfilled, but also with a layer of like generational wealth. Being able to create that not just for myself, but for my family, my loved ones. I feel like that's probably one of the biggest shifts, like becoming a mother. It's just realizing that, yes, it is all about me. Absolutely. This is my life. I'm the main character, but it's also like you're building something else that's so beautiful. So it's like, how can I make their life richer and in turn my life richer as well? Yeah. Financial, generational, and just whole joy, richness, emotional wealth.
I love that so much. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about how you're also giving your son the gift of generational empowerment by using their voice to just move people, right? Like I have a daughter who at the beginning of the podcast I mentioned that, you know, she's also someone who will be considered a white Latina. And that girl loves to talk. Like, oh my God. Like the moment she rings the bell, she's like, Mommy, blah, 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 blah," and she's like full force. And I'm like, mi amor, res- yeah, pausa. And so whenever I go to speak, I make sure that she comes with me now because I want her to even see that she can also do that if she wants to, right? Just normalizing like taking up space. And
Hmm.
she's super shy, by the way. She's just like, no, behind the scenes, or just I'll take the pictures. Like she's very much shy. But we are also giving our voice as a generational gift for our kids. So thank you so much for coming to the show. I cannot wait to connect with you again. And again, thank you so much for the work that you do through the speaker movement, because the whole concept is just so audacious. And thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much just for your time and for the platform, honestly, to share all this. I really appreciate you. Thank you again.
All right, Steph. So let's go ahead and build wealth juntas.
Sounds fabulous.